Good morning or afternoon or evening. It's Friday. I'm doing this on Friday because I got back from Mexico City doing zero trust stuff down there. And anyway, I just felt like doing it on Friday. So this is Dr. Zero Trust Show. If you're looking for something more informative with a better looking host, go somewhere else. But this is me and this is my show. So anyway, let's jump into the news for this week. Probably the most staggering thing that came out was this 16 billion passwords exposed in record-breaking data breach. Now, immediately the math in this is suspect. So let's just talk about the suspicious nature of the math here. There's only 8 billion-ish people on the planet, and this is 16 billion passwords. So just, understand that there's a little bit of things that you should analyze here before you go deeper into the rabbit hole. And let's run through some of that analysis. So let's see. Several collections of login credentials reveal one of the largest data breaches in history, totaling a humongous 16 billion exposed login credentials. This data most likely originates from various info stealers. Key takeaways. Largest data breach in history. More on that in a second. The records are scattered across 30 different databases. Okay. And some records are or might be overlapping. Science and math tells you that has to happen. The data comes from various info stealers. It's recent, not merely from recycled old breaches, okay, to a degree, and cybercriminals have unprecedented access to credentials. Yes, so let's see here. Unnecessarily compiling sensitive information is damaging. I don't know why people call me when I'm doing stuff. Is trying to steal it, for example. Cyber News research team discovered a plethora of supermassive data sets from social media, corporate platforms to VPNs and developer portals. No stone was left unturned. Our team has been closely monitoring the web since the beginning of the year. So far, they've discovered 30 exposed data sets containing tens of millions to over 3.5 billion records each. In total, the researchers uncovered an unimaginable 16 billion records. Remember, again, there's only 8-ish billion people on the planet. None of the exposed data sets were reported previously. I find that extremely hard to believe, but okay, let's just table that for now. In late May, Wired magazine reported security research discovering a mysterious database with 184 million records. It barely scratches the top 20 of what the team discovered. Most worryingly, researchers claim new massive data sets emerge every few weeks. Okay, so logins, 184. They got a screenshot here. A mysterious database, screenshot by Bob Yatchenko. Cool. Here's a quote. This is not just a leak. It's a blueprint for mass exploitation with 16 billion login records exposed. These aren't just old breaches being recycled to a degree. This is fresh, weaponizable, say that word twice, intelligence at scale. The only silver lining here is that all the data sets were exposed only briefly, long enough for researchers to uncover them, but not long enough to find who is controlling vast amounts of data. Most of the data sets were temporarily accessible through unsecured Elasticsearch or object storage instances. What do they contain? Let's see. InfoStealer malware, credential stuffing, package leaks. So here's the key takeaway that I would say that they didn't really include as part of their key takeaways. There was no way to effectively compare the data between different data sets. So then how can you claim it's 16 billion records if you can't do a comparison? But it's safe to say overlapping records are definitely present. I would say, mathematically speaking, has to be. In other words, it's impossible to tell how many people or accounts were actually exposed. Okay, 16 billion is a shitload of records. Pretty bold to claim that. However, the information the team managed to gather revealed that most of the information followed a clear structure, a URL followed by login details and a password. Most modern info stealers, malicious software collect data that way. Sure. Information leak data sets open doors to pretty much every service imaginable, from Apple, Facebook, Google to GitHub, Telegram, etc. It's hard to miss something with 16 billion records on the table. Yeah. The inclusion of both recent and older info stealer logs, often with tokens, cookies, and metadata, makes this data particularly dangerous. What data set exposed billions of credentials? Well, let's see. The data sets that the team uncovered differ widely. For example, the smallest named after malicious software has over 16 million records. Meanwhile, the largest one, most likely related to the Portuguese-speaking population, had 3.5 billion records. So wait a minute. How many Portuguese-speaking people are on the planet? Are there 3.5 billion Portuguese people on the planet? I wouldn't think so. Okay, so the suspect, but anyway, on average, one data set with exposed credentials had 550 million records. Some of the data sets were named logins, credentials, and other similar terms. One data set with 455 million records was named indicates origins of the Russian Federation. Okay, cool. Now here's further information. No, Facebook, Google, and Apple passwords weren't leaked, or were they? With a data set containing 16 billion passwords, that's the equivalent of 2 leaked accounts for every person on the planet, like I said earlier. Here's more information that should be put into this. And this is from this article. We don't really know how many duplicate records there are. So then how can you claim it's 16 billion? Again, do your fucking math before you claim some shit like this. There's no centralized data breach from these companies. However, that doesn't mean that the logins were breached and loaded to the dark web. Blah, blah, blah. As per request, they are sharing a few screenshots. And of course, there are Google, Zoom login, Twitch logins, and those things in there as well. 16 billion record data breach signals a shift in the underground world. I would disagree with that. Here's a quote from Aras Nazarvaras. The increased number of exposed info stealer data sets in the form of centralized traditional databases like the ones the research team found may be a sign that cybercriminals are actively shifting from previously popular alternatives such as Telegram groups to basically collecting data and harvesting it. Some of the records exposed include information cookies, session tokens, which makes the mitigation of such exposure more difficult. Cookies can often be used to bypass 2FA methods, and not all services reset these cookies. Fair. Best bet in this case is to change your passwords. Okay, great. How to protect yourself. So this is where things get really interesting. Go reset your passwords. Okay, sure, if you got the time for that. Select strong, unique passwords. Duh, we've been trained in that 10 billion times over. Enable MFA. We've been told that 1,000 times over. Monitor your accounts. We've been told that 1,000 times over. Contact customer support. So, in short, same shit, different day. I would say that there's definitely some kind of hype in this. But, the fact that you're putting this out there as far as like it's major league compromise stuff, and you can't even do the math to verify dupes and dedupes and those things, calls it into question. So, like, interesting stuff, good work, but just be a little bit more honest about your math. Cool. Bloomberg. Let's see if I actually know. It doesn't give me the actual article. But anyway, UBS confirms data stolen after hack at external supplier. Pretty easy to get in there and figure out what's going on with that one. But here's the long and short of UBS got data stolen, even though they said the data wasn't stolen and it was due to an external third-party supplier. So down the food chain. Shocker, I know. Okay, let's talk quickly about the stuff that's going on. Iran, Israel, geopolitics, and those things aside, like, I'm not getting into the political nature of that stuff, but what I would like to talk about is what you've seen in Ukraine and what you're seeing right now in Iran and Israel is the future of warfare. And what I mean by that is everyone talks about what will this look like in X number of years. You're seeing it right now. You've got drones that are being used. You've got covert activities where they're putting drones in the back of trucks and driving them thousands of miles into locations and then releasing them to go take out nuclear bombers. You've got the stuff going on in Iran where it's following the playbook of sort of cyber espionage and kinetic actions to a T. One of the first things they did was took down the banking system. Everyone freaks out, starts running, trying to get their money. Their money's not there. It causes chaos and panic. You start seeing the bombing stuff that was going on TV, where the lady was talking about that Allah is not going to let anybody get bombed, and sure enough, during the fucking TV channel thing, they got bombed. You're also seeing Israeli organizations take over, and this is all reported in the news, take over TV channels in Iran and basically broadcasting like revolt, stand up, fight for your rights, those types of things. Conversely, you're seeing Iran attack Israel via cyber combined with kinetic attacks on either side of the equation. So it's very much back and forth. This is what the future of warfare looks like, where you're seeing national level implications and national level impacts due to cyber operations combined with kinetic conflict, combined with drones, eventually potentially combined with boots on ground and those things. This is very, very real. And folks should also understand that we, the United States, are not immune from this type of activity occurring. Like I wrote about this in my cyber warfare book years ago. This is the bridge between espionage and kinetic conflict is cyber. And all of these things play into it. Deep fakes. I've been monitoring Twitter and Reddit and a bunch of stuff. And you're seeing tons and tons and tons of deep fakes and manipulated media and images and videos and all those things to really get it across to folks like, you don't know what the reality is. You don't know who's calling the shots here. I saw articles that were being published in real time about Ahmadinejad being executed on the streets by the Mossad. I saw one last night that was a deep fake of the supreme leader over Khamenei over there surrendering. So this is the future state of warfare. And honestly, it's concerning because this is the stuff that the US is going to be dealing with. And while we think that we're super awesome and amazing, just think about how bad things are on the compromise level. Think about how people react to political information, disinformation, etc. It is not beyond the pale for us to be exploited, targeted, activated in just the same manner. So this is what it looks like. This is what we are going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future. Here's the article in the Hacker News. Iran state TV hijacked mid-broadcast, which is what I was talking about. 90 million stolen crypto heist. Iran state-owned TV broadcaster was hacked Wednesday night to interrupt regular programming and air videos calling for street protest in the against the Iranian government. It's currently not known who is behind the attack. Wink, wink. Probably, Iranians, Israelis, etc. If you experience disruptions or irrelevant messages while watching various TV channels, it is due to enemy interference with satellite signals, the broadcaster in Iran was saying. The breach of state television is the latest in a string of cyber attacks inside Iran that have been attributed to Israeli-linked actors, you think? It also coincides with the hack of banks SEPA and Novitex, which are Iran's largest cryptocurrency exchange. The Novitex hack led to the theft of more than 90 million, a brazen escalation of the cyber war that has simmered between Israel and Iran for more than a decade. Here's a quote from some researchers. Iranian entities have experimented with virtual assets as both financial workaround because of all the requirements and all the restrictions we have against them. This includes the proliferation of advanced weapons technology and funding, etc. This latest incident highlights how crypto exchanges, once peripheral to conflict, are increasingly becoming strategic targets for geopolitical actors. Totally agree. Yep. This latest development also follows the revelation from Israeli officials that Iran is hijacking private security cameras installed in Israel to gather real-time intelligence. Again, the bridge between espionage and kinetic conflict, mirroring a similar tactic used by Russia. There we go. Here's another quote. We all know that in the past 2 or 3 days, the Iranians have been trying to connect to cameras to understand what happened and where their missiles hit to improve precision. This is from the National Cyber Directorate for Israel. Cybersecurity firm Radware said nearly 40% of all hacktivist DDoS activities have been directed against Israel since the onset of the latest flare-up. On June 17th, the hacktivist group DieNet warned it would launch cyber attacks in the United States if it joined the conflict in Iran. The message has been amplified by other groups like Arabian Ghost, Silnet Gang, Team Fearless, etc. And here's the quote from our people. Companies are urged to take maximum vigilance. The warning signs are clear. Critical supply chains, even global businesses, could become collateral targets. Yeah. So yes, this is very interesting and problematic. In a 2-part analysis, CloudSec said more than 35 distinct pro-Iranian groups have launched coordinated attacks against Israeli infrastructure, as opposed to only less than half dozen pro-Israeli groups engaging in hacktivist activity. Predominantly, it's DDoS attacks, website defacements, claim data breaches, etc., etc. Most significantly, these recent attacks maintain the same pattern of exaggeration and disinformation that's characterized the broader hacktivist ecosystem, with groups continuing to take credit for unrelated service outages, recycle old data leaks, and inflate damage claims for media attention. So, point being, what you are seeing going on in Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Iran, that is what warfare looks like for the foreseeable future. We don't know which way is up. No one knows what reality or the truth is. And you're having to deal with the kinetic impacts of missiles. At the same time, you're dealing with the geopolitical, economic, societal impacts of manipulation of the media, manipulation of reality, manipulation of the electronic battle space, etc. It is a very, very crazy place that we find ourselves in. So be aware, and I hope, God, I hope that our folks are, ahead of the curve on this, because it is genuinely concerning that we are here. We have totally jumped the shark. Everyone has basically said, cool, cyber is the first action. Um, we can do all the espionage stuff we want, but even before we start launching missiles, we start doing cyber attacks. And typically we attack critical infrastructure, banking, and healthcare, which we've seen. Further into that, anyway, yeah, another article. This one's interesting because I don't think there's been better proof that legislators don't understand what the hell they're doing here than this. European sovereign DNS relies on Cloudflare, Google, and routing through Five Eyes. So it's not really sovereign then. Duh. A network engineer scrutinizing the new European DNS service found it relies heavily on services from Cloudflare and Google, and even routes through traffic through non-EU providers, raising questions about sovereignty claims, like it's not sovereign. Duh. While DNS for EU has acknowledged certain findings and clarified these do not actively or accurately reflect the project's scope. DNS for EU was presented as an initiative by the European Commission to provide Europeans with a private, safe, independent European DNS resolver that could compete with Google or Cloudflare, but they're using Google and Cloudflare. The service's website claims that EU infrastructure security project provides a protected, privacy-compliant, and resilient DNS service to strengthen digital sovereignty and security for EU citizens, governments, critical infrastructure. Hooray! However, research by GensLink, an IT consultant, reveals that the service's website relies on Cloudflare mail servers, Google stuff, and routing data, which also suggests the actual traffic flows through non-EU providers. It has to. And here's a guy that literally did a whois lookup, grepped it. There it is, Cloudflare. DNS lookup. Yeah. BGP stuff is involved in here. Now, last time it's routing stuff through the EU, through Great Britain. And literally the quote is, last time I checked, Great Britain was not part of the EU. It's also a member of Five Eyes, which is an intelligence group between the US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Bang, bang. Yeah. While the researcher checked the IP addresses of the DNS for EU website, it resolved the Cloudflare's infrastructure. Cloudflare is an American company, and it runs the backbone of the internet. So, The researcher also found that DNS for EU uses Google for email servers. Europeans can't do web and mail. There's absolutely no provider here who can do such complicated tasks, Link said. And these are not the only issues with the service. The author pointed out concerns about the lack of redundancy and potential vulnerability to DDoS. And here's a quote from the researcher. I would expect such service to be anycasted, available via multiple providers, all EU-based. Golem, a German tech website, also warns that normal DNS traffic is unencrypted, which means the DNS requests are sent to DNS for EU in plain text and can be intercepted by anyone in the middle. Therefore, your privacy stuff is bullshit. Yeah,